When it comes to telling a story and a narrative, I think even if, let's say you're somebody who absolutely hates the direction they were taking 5's story, I know there's a lot of people in that camp, I think there's something to be said about when you set up a narrative, even if it's not well received, you want to have the integrity to finish it out, to show that you at least had a little bit of belief in your own story to carry it out despite the backlash. So I think there's some integrity there in finishing it, but then there's a whole other conversation of this is a game, this is a product, they need to make money, they need to sell, they need to please fans, and would continuing that narrative in a typical way do that. But anyways, Ian, let you take it away. What did you kind of want to see, and what do you want them to touch on with that arc in Infinite?
That's honestly a really good question because I've said this. I was not satisfied with the way Halo 5 played out. I don't dislike the idea of the created as much as some parts of the community do. Like a lot of people compare it to Terminator and Skynet, and honestly, like in my own mind, not to go too far off on the tangent here, like the created doesn't feel very much like a traditional AI uprising to me, and I think like it's not we want to wipe out humanity. It's we want to embed that's not a word, but you know what I mean.
They want to police it to be better. We want to, right?
It's like improve it through fascism, essentially, or a dictatorship might be the better word in that case. I don't know exactly how I would have liked to see the created storyline play out, and to be clear, I think you said this on record already. If not, I'll just say it here. We don't know for sure that the created aren't going to be in Infinite. It's if 343's marketing strategy right now is to get people hyped up with the Banished, and then kind of have, as some people have suggested, actually in response to my own tweet, to my reaction back on a week and a half ago, if their plan is to kind of have the created play the part of the Flood, where it's like you don't know that this is coming, but there actually are going to be in there.
That's cool.
That would they make some kind of surprise show up later or after the story has started in some manner. It'd also kind of make a Promethean Halo 4 comparison had we not known that the Prometheans were going to be a thing.
Man,
if you were to go into Halo 4 blind with no knowledge, just straight from 3 to 4 with no knowledge of what happens in Halo 4 or any of the marketing, the Prometheans would be this huge what moment for you.
That's true.
Yeah,
they really advertise them a lot. Yeah.
It's kind of unfortunate.
Ask you real quick, how would you feel if they end up doing something like that kind of mirrors the Combat Evolved sort of twist, like the people were suggesting? How would that make you feel?
It with anything, it depends on how exactly they do it. But in theory, I wouldn't mind that idea. If you're fighting the Banished early on, and maybe there's there have been hints in some of these Mega Block sets, you have things called Grunt Conscript and Jackal Freebooter and Elite Mercenary. Maybe it's not pure Banished. Banished is maybe one faction that they're fighting, and then there are these freelance former Covenant species running around too. But you're fighting them, and then all of a sudden, Cortana and the Guardians show up, and everything changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be a good idea. The main thing that I'm concerned about is just I want to see the created storyline finished. I want it to be given a proper ending in the game. I don't want this is the comparison I've made recently. I don't want another Janus Key incident where it's shoved into the expanded universe and resolved off there, and especially in some unceremonious way like the Janus Key storyline was done. That was done real dirty.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Ian, because, and I've told Josh about this because he wasn't as heavily involved in the Halo community when Halo 4 came out as I was. There's this narrative now that Halo 4 has a really great campaign and story, a bad multiplayer, and Halo 5 has a bad campaign and story and a great multiplayer.
For the record, I said that back when Halo 5 came out.
Nice.
Okay, yeah.
It's on record. No, anyway.
Yeah. I agree with you. On the episode with Haruspis, I told him, I was like, the reason I found Haruspis is because I loved Halo 4 from the moment it came out, and I was trying to find somebody to relate to me. You know what I mean? So the thing I tell Josh is, because he didn't really notice this, is that when Halo 4 came out, people hated the story. People hated the campaign. I mean, that
was certainly the prominent narrative at the time.
Yeah, it was all over the place about how stupid the story was, how characters didn't act right, how people hated the didact, blah 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 blah. So nowadays, when people like look back on it and say, "Oh, it was so good," I can't imagine that there's not that people at 343 shaking their heads, going, "You know what? We had something really good with Halo 4, but we got so much negative feedback. We altered course." We changed, because like you said, Ian, with the Janus Key and Spartan Ops and everything else, they were definitely leading in one direction. But I think all the backlash to Halo 4 made them go in a different direction with 5, and now we're in the same situation again where...
eventually.
Yeah, where 5 has a story that people are complaining about, and everyone's saying, we didn't like that, gloss over it, go into the Banish, let's do something else, we hate that. And
Spartan Locke.
Yeah, kill Spartan Locke, we don't like him, And it's like... That's exactly what happened with Halo 4, and now we look back on Halo 4 and we're like, man, they had a lot of good setup there, like a lot of potential to really make something special out of what was a trilogy at the time. So, well, yeah, what do you think about that, Ian?
Oh, go ahead.
Or go, Josh, anybody. You're all up.
Josh, you want to say your...
Oh, I was just going to say that, it's weird listening to you guys as someone who's not put in as much time getting to know some of the lore as you guys have. Like, it's weird because when I look at Halo 4 to Halo 5, I feel like story-wise, it was very much a good continuation. I didn't feel like they really cut stuff out unless you think of like Spartan Ops or something. But when I read Escalation just recently and all that stuff about the Janus Key and whatnot, and like, yeah, there is some stuff that it seems like there was a little bit of pullback on. But like, if you just play the games, you don't kind of seek out the expanded universe, I guess, if you will. You don't really notice that stuff. But I guess that was a thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, like I've said before, at least in some online conversations. I don't know if I've ever said this in a video or not, but like Halo 5, if you played Spartan Ops, kind of doesn't make there's a huge gap in there that doesn't make sense. But if you go straight from Halo 4 right into Halo 5, and especially if you were to skip the first level, I think of Halo 5, I think you'd probably be better off than somebody who had played all through Spartan Ops.
I agree with that.
And hypothetically didn't read Escalation.
Okay.
Which I think of the crowd that played Spartan Ops and went to Halo 5, I think the majority probably didn't read those comics. So
yeah,
I didn't at the time. So yeah.
Yeah, so it's like if you had played Spartan Ops, it's like, wait a minute, where's the Janus Key? Why is Halsey all nice now? And Jesus, what did they just do to Jewel? And then if you go straight from Halo 4 to Halo 5, you might have a few of those questions, but they drop Jewel and Dama so quickly, pun intended, that once you can kind of just gloss that over, go right to the second level, and it's like, oh, okay, so now I'm back to the narrative, whatever.
Yeah, if they hypothetically
Janus Key, what?
Yeah, right. If they hypothetically do something like that, I mean, we kind of touched on it earlier, but if they do something like that for Halo Infinite, regarding all this stuff that 5 kind of left us wondering about, like, is that gonna, if they kind of follow a similar route to what they did with Jewel, is that really gonna like bother you as a fan? Do you want like a whole story kind of like really touching upon this and expanding upon this, or would you be fine if it's kind of like something that maybe halfway is kind of like, they wash their hands clean of? How are you gonna feel about that stuff?
My main thing is I want the created storyline to be resolved in game, and hopefully in a way that's satisfying and flows naturally into whatever they're trying to set up with Infinite. Because to be clear, at least in my experience, I think a lot of people have missed this. When Infinite was announced, 343, I can't remember exactly where. I need to find this quote again someday. But they said that Halo Infinite is the start of the next 10 years of Halo, if memory serves.
Yeah.
But it's like it's the start of a new saga. So it's not the end of the Reclaimer trilogy or the Reclaimer saga, sorry, as some people might think. It's the start of a new chapter of Halo. So they were like, he basically said we had these growing pains with Halo 4 and 5, and then Halo Infinite is kind of like, okay, I think we figured it out, and now let's start our new narrative arc. So if we can wrap up the created in a satisfying way that leads into what is happening now, or whatever they're setting up, planning to do, that I think that would be my bare minimum hope.